Blocka. Veep.
Nabs rolled either like a 19 or a 20 or something.
No.
Yeah, critted on it, and we got 27,000 gold.
What up, dudes?
And so I was like, oh yeah, like I've got this potion, like this one gives you massive strength. I did not have any potions, I had oil. So I gave him the thing, and I convinced him to drink it, and as he was drinking it, I had a torch, and I just bonked him on the head with it, so it broke, lit him on fire. Yeah, so that's what initiated combat, but that was a lot of fun.
Welcome to the Narrative Nerds Holiday Special. Happy holidays.
Ding dong 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 dong.
For whatever holiday you celebrate. And yeah, this week on the Narrative Nerds, we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Little different than usual, but we know you're going to really enjoy it. We're also going to have a separate episode because we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons for a little while. We don't want to bog you down with a real long episode. So we're going to have a totally separate episode of just advertisements, just for you listeners out there that like those ads. So this week, since it is the holiday special, of course, I'm joined with Carter Petrie. Carter, how's it going?
I'm alright. No, I'm just kidding. I'm great. It's been a good couple days since I've been back in Minnesota, just hanging 10, family and friends, having a good old time, and good to be here doing the podcast with the boys. Yeah,
it's the first episode that Carter and I are actually together in the same room. If you listen to the other episodes, we're in high five range. So that's
just a hair out of high five range.
Just do one.
No, I mean, yeah,
we might as well get one.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We are close enough.
We are also joined by our longtime friend, D&D extraordinaire, Nick Katasik.
Hello.
Come on now.
Welcome to the podcast.
Come on
Thanks,
down.
man. I appreciate it.
How does it feel?
It's good to be here. It's going to be interesting because I was supposed to do a podcast with a couple other guys, but fell through, so I'm excited to be on your guys'.
Well,
you had a roster of podcasts.
We'll take you. We'll take you any day. We'll take you any day. So before we hop into it, we'll just give a little background on our D&D experience. Carter, you want to tell everybody about your D&D
Yeah, might as well kick it off because I am the least experienced. I'm probably a notch above you listeners who may have zero experience with this. I've played a one-off, which is kind of just like a quick story, quick little jib-jab. You're just jumping right in, and it ends that day.
It's like watching a movie. Yeah, you get the beginning, middle, and end all in one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did one of those with Shane last Christmas season. I believe was my first encounter with D&D, which was awesome. I think essentially we were dropped into a little kingdom. We had to go through kind of like a cavern,
there was
ruin.
There was this crypt where you guys had to recover an amulet.
Yeah, and I was a wizard, and I think I just created the fact... Spundra. I created the fact that I had a wheelchair, and I think at one point I got stuck on like a root or something, and it was a really bad thing that I added this wheelchair.
I'm pretty sure at that point you just stood up and walked out of it.
Yeah. So that was like an hour or 2 hours in. I was like, oh, plot twist, I'm actually fine.
Yeah, my legs were great.
Yeah, and I just jumped up, and I think I might have used the wheelchair as a weapon in one battle, and then it broke. Shane was like, it broke.
Yeah.
You no longer have the wheelchair. I'm like, well, I got crutches, and you're like, no, you don't. So we did that one.
Roll for crutches? No, we don't have crutches.
No crutches. There's nothing. So we did that one. We might have done one other little one-off.
I know you played...
Oh, yeah.
We did another one-off, and you also played a little bit with the campaign that I'm running now, too.
Yeah.
As Barquarter.
Barquarter.
The Druid.
Yeah, so that one was Shane's campaign that he's been writing as his DM. So he was ripping through that. And are you still doing that?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rock on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I had I think what was that, July? When I was in Minnesota last, we did, Shane kind of chucked me into the mix. I was some kind of an elf, I believe.
Yeah, I think you were a wood elf druid.
Druid, yeah. So like a spellcaster, somebody who's got some abilities. I didn't know how to play, so I kind of just jumped into it with a blind eye to like the mechanics and everything, and was asking a lot of questions I probably shouldn't have been asking. But you got to learn. So I was playing with all experienced players, a couple buddies from high school. It was really fun. Shane can definitely give you more backstory, but essentially I just kind of jumped in, and we were, what was it, Diamond City or something? It was similar to that. It was like Silver Lake City or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
It was Silver Lake City.
Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah, and that's actually a real city in Iowa, but I can get more.
Yeah. Shane will get into that depth.
In a minute.
Essentially, we ran through the city, got some information, and then we went and fought some rednecks out in the woods. We got squatted up by a bunch of rednecks with shotguns, and had to fight our way out of that little pinch, and that was a treat. That was a good time.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's enough about my. I mean, that's it was a lot of fun, and did I run off with Fleckendor the Wise? Is that how I got out of it?
I believe you're still working with him.
Am I? Am I still growing?
I believe so.
Beauty.
But yeah, Nick, do you want to enlighten everyone on your experiences?
Yeah. So basically, in college, so the first time I played D&D was when I was in 6th grade with my sister's at then time boyfriend. We played one session for about an hour. And I think all we did was get out of a jail cell and fight some guards. So not a lot happened. And then there was about a 7-year hiatus. And then when I was technically a junior in college, me and a couple of buddies got together. This was before Shane joined us. And we started a campaign. And they kind of ran through that. Surprisingly, no characters died in that. But they really liked it. So we were like, oh, well, let's continue it next year. And then we brought Shane into the fold. And we ran through about a 9-month-long campaign with a month off for winter break.
It was 9 months of so much fun.
Yeah. It was great. I had a really good time DMing it. There's a lot of things that it can be frustrating to DM. I will say that, but it's really rewarding.
What is DMing?
So DMing is dungeon mastering. So basically, you are the pseudo god of the world. You basically control everything. You
play every character in the world outside of the party. Mm-hmm. You referee all of the rules, and you keep track of all of the bad guys too.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're essentially, like you said,
running the show.
God.
Yeah. And then
you're a focal point of the storytelling
for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as playing goes, got very few and far between. We did a one shot for a little bit. I played a orc barbarian or warrior. Yeah, barbarian. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun because I ended up getting a weapon called the Black Razor, which is it's a pretty substantial weapon in D&D, and pretty much turns you into like an anime character.
Sweet.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Everything gets really dramatic.
Yeah, pretty much. And I just remember I was doing some crazy stuff with it. It was super fun.
Nice.
And then played in Shane's campaign one time, died really fast. The whole party died in that session, so I didn't feel too bad.
That was a rough one.
Mm-hmm. And I actually, in that one, I brought in the character that I played that was the anime character. I brought him back for that one as like a little cameo type thing. Thok One Eye was his name. He only had one eye. Yeah,
nice.
So that hence the name. So that was a lot of fun. So I've got a good amount of experience under my belt, about 2 years. Playing it, and a lot of it DMing.
Steadily
so.
too.
Mm-hmm, so I've been taking a break as of late because I want to DM again. I just don't want to do it right now. I got to have the right group and just the right schedule.
Definitely.
For work and stuff. I got to be able to fit everything in. So
yeah.
Usually,
absolutely.
I mean, Shane, you like to with your group. You guys do usually a week.
Yeah, it's every Monday from we typically play 7 to 9. I mean, it's only a couple hours, but yeah, so. Typically, it's once a week. But yeah, off that, a little background about my experience. Like Nick said, I jumped in with their group. That was my first time playing. Before that, I played... Nick and I did a session 0 where I was the only one, and he essentially showed me the ropes. I had to break out of a jail cell.
That moment.
I was in this orc-driven town where all the humans were essentially like indentured servants.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how to like get out of there and everything. And
I want to break free.
I met these adventurers that like wanted to help me get something. We had to get something or kill somebody. Mm-hmm. And because of my decisions, they all died, and it was
except for one, the one that everybody hated.
Yeah. So it was pretty rough.
His name was Reno.
Yeah.
And basically it was Reno and Rhaegar, and they were like a gang. And my players before this had always run into these guys at convenient times to tell them, "Hey, this is where we're going. Do you want to come with?" And then Shane killed them all. So,
well, it was
dead.
Okay, a different guy killed them all. Shane got them all killed.
I wasn't helping. Let's just say that. So I played in that party where Nick was the DM, Dungeon Master for you listeners out there. Nick DM'd that one. We had an awesome 9 months of fun, and that's where I really like learned D&D and figured out the ropes. After that, because I'm kind of a loudmouth, I like to tell people about things that I enjoy. I convinced a few people to do a one-off where I was the DM. My first time ever running a session was the one-off in which Carter was there as the wizard. That was a ton of fun, and after that I started doing a little bit more DMing, playing with a few different groups here and there. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then this past summer, I started up a new campaign. And typically D&D is set in kind of like a medieval magical realm, with like kings and queens and cavalry and stuff like that. That's kind of like typical D&D lore. In this campaign that I set up, I wanted to do something a little different, and I kind of wanted to make it close to home for people, quite literally. So I set up a setting where it was like post-apocalyptic. So it's set in like 2052 after a nuclear fallout which struck the U.S. and the rest of the world, and the population dropped like 99.9%. And so the characters essentially started their adventure coming out of a nuclear bunker in the middle of a deserted town in central Iowa, where they started heading north, hitting a few cities along the way, stuff like that. They went up 35 north. They hit like Faribault, they hit Lakeville, and then they made their way to Bloomington,
which is in Minnesota.
Yep, Bloomington, Minnesota, where they set up shop in the Mall of America with a very powerful faction.
Oh, yeah?
And I won't give too much away, but essentially their whole quest line is centered around retrieving these magic orbs that have power imbued in them. And,
so when I was involved in that, we were in that Silver Lake, and we had just realized, I think you guys had already got some backstory that I didn't get, but we ran into like a power generator that was like a water filter in the lake, and there was this like kind of like maybe like a Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk type of man that was running.
His name's John Watts, and he's the creator of this hydro generator that basically, and this was something that I thought about. It's probably out in the world. It's probably a real thing. I mean, it's essentially the idea of like mill power, where you take hydroelectricity, but this basically takes water and separates the atoms in a safe way, and it exhausts oxygen, so it puts clean oxygen out into the world, and then it takes the power generated from separating the atoms and creates like electricity for use, like a lot of electricity. Yeah. And that's kind of like the direction that the world started going after John Watts created this thing.
And that he created that post-nuclear fallout?
Yes. And like, so he originally, his backstory, he was stationed in a bunker that was essentially like a science lab. And him and his comrades created this generator and
kind of helped
Yeah, I mean,
rebuild the world.
their idea was to rebuild the world after the fallout.
Yeah.
You know, because water dampens like nuclear blast, they figured that, you know, there'd still be water in the world, so that kind of led to Minnesota being a focal point of the campaign because we're out of the land at 10,000 lakes, so it makes sense that you have water generators.
For sure, yeah. Implement that technology.
Because originally he was from the desert, like he was in Nevada, I believe.
Oh, really?
John Watts' bunker was in Nevada, and he went across the country and like gave out these generators. So
what I remember from that campaign is we went into a bar. We were talking with these two very flamboyant gentlemen.
One of them was, yeah.
One of them believed he wasn't, but I think he might have been.
Well, no, they were definitely a homosexual couple.
Yeah. They just didn't want to admit it. But anyway, I think they're kind of fighting back and forth on. One of them was saying like, "Oh, he's just a saint. He's our savior," and then another guy was like, "He's a piece of shit. He's gonna tear his place down. He's a bad man."
Yeah.
And I think they were also redneck too, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, so he was an antagonist and a protagonist to these two gentlemen, so we didn't know. So whatever happened to that?
Well, so essentially the gang is now working for Vots. They've kind of sided with him. Yeah, and the reason I wanted to do that was have that sequence was so that the party could make up their own mind on Vots. You know, one guy's point was, hey, he gave us this awesome ability to turn water into energy, which can rebuild the nation. The other side of it was, why do you give it to us for free? What's the ulterior motive of Vots?
Exactly.
And so I kind of set that there as a way for, you know, kind of an exposition dump, but also give the people a chance to have their own ideas. So kind of jumping off that, because we do want to explain what D&D is a little bit.
Yeah. Just felt give you a little backstory there. Yeah. Some of what we've been through.
Here's a convenient exposition drop. Dungeons and Dragons, or commonly referred to as D&D, is a tabletop role-playing game where players create characters and go on adventures. One of the players takes on the role of Dungeon Master, or DM, kind of like we were just talking about. And they are responsible for describing the setting, playing all non-playable characters outside of the party, and then also being kind of the referee for the game. So Dungeons and Dragons is essentially a collaborative storytelling game fueled by the decisions made by the players. So the players may find themselves, you know, fighting off trolls to protect a small town, or bartering with a local shopkeeper, or even investigating strange assassinations happening in a village. I mean, the possibilities are totally endless.
Whatever the DM wants to do.
Right. And really, whatever the players want to do. Because as a DM, I say, hey, you're in this village, and a lot of people are giving you dirty looks because, you know, you guys all have blood all over you or something from the last battle you were in. And then the players get to determine whatever actions they take, whatever decisions they make, and that's how the story is told. And that's kind of why we wanted to talk about D&D on this podcast, was just because it is a storytelling game where characters unfold and new facets of a story are told and revealed. But it's also collaborative, so everyone at the table is telling the story.
It's growing as you're progressing.
Exactly.
Based on the actions.
And that's why it is such a sweeping phenomena, is because, you know, everyone gets to be a part of it. You know, it's not just the DM telling you your character does this, your character does that. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
The players' characters choose their own actions, and we play based off of that.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
Which I like. That is probably my favorite thing. Is like, you can do all the preparation in the world. You can spend 10 hours a week prepping, but you might not cover everything. Which is pretty crazy.
Or they might turn and go the other way. You might plan an entire thing based on this one dungeon that you're gonna hope the players go into, but they might spend the entire time, you know, bartering with a shopkeeper or chasing down a mugger or something like that. You never know.
Yeah. I always think, like when it comes down to being a DM, I think of it as like a tournament bracket. You got, like, you know, like one team, and it splits off, and then you got two teams, and you got two teams go to two teams.
Yeah.
So you got, like, all right, we've got one situation, you got two options, or maybe three, or maybe four, and then you've got what
more
happens from those
for
4.
Yeah.
And then it can split.
Yeah.
So, like, I think if I were to ever DM, I would probably sit and just, like, go, like, one situation.
You make like a little web out of it.
Exactly. And just keep the web... but you could get way out of hand really fast.
Dude, I was going to say, man,
you would drive yourself absolutely...
Especially with, like, all the decisions they might have to make given a single session, you know? Like, that would drive me bonkers.
And you could never depend on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that it's just endless too, because not only do you have, you know, like one player can make multiple decisions, but you have a party of 4 players, 5 players, 6 players, you know, whatever it is. And so you have that many more decisions.
Exactly, because people come together collaboratively to say, what should we do, guys?
Yeah.
That's why improv is so important.
Exactly.
In D&D. Like, it's you know, especially like as a dungeon master, one of the first rules of improv and of DMing is say yes to everything. Like, you know, you can try and maybe just, you know, maybe throw some hints, like discourage your players, like, oh, we're in the king's court, I want to shoot him with an arrow. Well, there's 20 guards around you. Are you sure about that? You know, and if they say yes, let them do it. But, you know,
there's always repercussions
yes to everything.
And one of the guards is scarred from taking an arrow in the knee, so you might not want to do that.
So that's like one of my favorite things about DMing was learning those improv skills.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, because DMing is a lot of fun because you get to know everything and you get to play every character, but it can be really mentally taxing because, like you said, you'll spend hours prepping, you'll create this awesome little narrative in your head of like the perfect scenario where your characters are focused and they're like, oh, we're going to do this one thing. But then, the butterfly of, oh yeah, there's a guy outside of town that wants to fight somebody, flies across the character's face, and all of a sudden they're chasing this guy down and they spend the entire session heckling this guy and beating the shit out of him, and you're like, well, there goes all my prep,
Yeah, I think when we were in that Silver Lake City, you had us walk through the courtyard, through the market, and there was this dude with like his pile of junk.
It was essentially, he had a trash heap that he was trying to make a couple pennies off.
Yeah, and we were like, should we sift through it? Like, we could definitely spend some time seeing what he's got.
Yeah.
Like, I bet we could have probably spent an hour digging through that rubble.
Yeah, and that's an instance where I think I encourage you guys
just
to move on, just by being like, all right, what do I find? You find a rusted down trike missing both back wheels. You want to keep looking?
Yeah. A rubber band tied to a spatula.
Yeah.
It's a guitar, man.
You find a bunch of bobby pins and some bottle caps.
Yeah. But this isn't Fallout, so it doesnesn't help you.
Yeah, so that doesn't matter. So a little more about D&D. Essentially, it breaks down as this. At its core, the DM describes a setting, an environment that the players are in, and then the players tell the DM what they would like to do in that environment. Some of their decisions will be determined using like a check, which is where you roll a dice to see how well you perform that action. Some of which are kind of like, if it's like, I want to walk over there, they can just do that freely. But in D&D, we use various dice ranging from a D4, which is like a little pyramid, a D6, which is your standard dice. When you think of a die, it'd be a D6. A D8, a D10, a D12, and then the most important, a D20. And the way it's essentially D and then however many sides they have. So they would roll a D20 is what you use for most of your checks to see how well you perform that activity. And that determines the success or failure of an action or attack. And then the dice are also used to simulate randomness. Stuff like that. So
I think something else we should definitely chuck in the fact is that this is not... How old is this game? Like, what, 30 years old? Something?
Oh, it's
30 or 40?
Yeah, probably closer to 40, because, shoot, we're in the 2010s now. Almost 2020, so almost right. The 80s is when it really started getting popular.
Yeah, so coming on 50 years?
Yeah, so since then there's been countless new editions of this, new
and
rules.
extended content and all kind of stuff.
So it's really came a long ways and evolved into something new.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Right. It's more popular than ever now because, with 5th edition, I don't want to say like they dumbed it down, but they made it much more streamlined. But D&D has so many different mechanics. Like, we started with 3.5. Sorry if I'm like going off track, but 3.5 has probably like 60-something skills.
Wow.
A lot of which can like overlap, and you can argue, well, wouldn't it be this skill? Well, it could be this skill too.
Like what's a spot check versus
a search check?
A search check.
Which in 5e, spot
5e,
search.
just so you guys know, 5e is the present.
Yeah,
5th edition. Yeah. So 3.5 is the 3.5 edition, which like why not just call it 4th? But they had a 4th, and 4th sucks. So like, you know, and then when we switched to 5 in the middle of my campaign from 3.5, it was probably the best switch we made. It was easier for literally everybody, me and the players included. Yeah. So it was phenomenal.
I was doing a little research, and it seemed seemingly everything below 5 gets a little chunky at times.
Oh yeah,
5 seemed to be really smooth.
Yeah.
And like super. It's super smooth. I mean, like I've run some one-offs with a few different people, ranging from like, you know, first-time players that were interested to like my dad who lost a bet to me and like had to give it a try, which he actually really enjoyed it. But you know, my dad is not hip to the lingo of D&D. He doesn't really buy into like the fantasy elves and dwarves and goblins and stuff.
Sure.
But it was easy for him to hop in. I mean, I think it took like an hour for us to set up his character, and he was able to jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
Big up, Stan.
Yeah, big up, Stan Ryan. We appreciate you playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy the way they've come to 5th edition. I mean, like Nick was saying, in 3.5 they had like, how many was it? Like
50, 60 skills or something like that, probably.
Crazy. And now in 5th edition, the skills list is only like 20 long, but it encapsulates all of those skills.
Yeah.
So in third and a half edition, it was like there was persuasion, deception, intimidation, and like there were a bunch of different speech checks that you could do.
Yeah.
Now it's just persuasion. That covers all of them.
That's
because
good.
that makes sense. Like, I can talk to you in a different tone, but if I'm really good at persuading people to do what I want, I'm probably going to be able to do it in every tone, you know?
Exactly.
Whether I'm getting aggressive with you or I'm, you know, telling you what you want to hear, I can probably do either or. Now, is that true for all people? No, but, I mean, it just makes the mechanics that much easier.
So is that like a charisma skill, though?
Yep. So your charisma is based off that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the reason I brought up the additions is because usually, I mean, like in 5e, you're doing, in the midst of combat, you chuck a d20, and usually if you're like over 10, then that's like, okay, now you've hit somebody, now throw like a d6, based on whatever weapon you're using, you throw it a certain amount of times, you add it all up, and then you go over to your, is it not armor class, right? Something like your
skills
dexterity,
modifier?
maybe? Yeah, skills modifier.
So it depends
That's
on what you are, what weapon you're using. So if you're using like a finesse weapon, which would be like a dagger or a fist weapon or something of that sort,
Something quick.
So something quick and light, and you use more finesse than strength to swing it, you would use your dexterity modifier, which would then add to your total damage
based on the roll of your dice.
Yes, on the second dice, not the first. But then for like strength-based weapons, which are like regular swords, axes, warhammers, that would be based off your strength. So,
and then you have another one like long distance, right? Is that?
Oh, that's also dexterity.
That's also dexterity.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. A little bit for the listeners, all of those skills we were talking about break down into all of the like skills and your abilities. Break down into different abilities and modifiers. So the 6 main abilities are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and then charisma. And then each one of the skills, correlates with one of those. So like your athletics would be a strength skill. Your persuasion would be a charisma skill.
Your perception is based on wisdom.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So it all breaks down that way.
Yep.
And I mean, it's pretty it's pretty cool to kind of generate those too, because every character has different stats and they're unique, and you can create your character however you want. And say you want a character that's really good at persuading people, but maybe he doesn't swing his sword as strong as somebody else.
Yeah.
You can build all that.
Mm-hmm. And could you potentially, if you're in the midst of a situation, your strength isn't very high, we need to whack that thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a rope that's way up high. You've got better athletics. We need you to jump up. Yeah. It's not considered metagaming, right? To talk to somebody and say, "Hey, you've got better jumping skills. Let's have you jump."
Like you're stronger than me, so
exactly.
you can do this. Yeah. I mean,
I think
there's a line, and I don't think that would cross it. I'll use kind of an example of one character I rolled. I was an old, scrawny but very charismatic man. Yeah. I referred to myself as Foxy Grandpa. And then one of our friends, Tom, was just this absolutely ripped man. If we were in a situation like that, I don't think it'd be too out of character for my guy to be like, "Hey, I can't climb this thing. Do it for me. Hit this guy for me." You know. I'll even there's the funny story, kind of like that. But basically, we came up on these bandits, and we had a bandit camp, and I was like, "All right, I got an idea." So basically, I took off all my armor and stuff. I was just wearing fancy clothes, and Tom was buff as hell, wearing full suit of armor and had a plate sword. And we walked up to these guys, and I pretended to be a snake oil salesman type guy. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got this potion. This one gives you massive strength." I did not have any potions. I had oil. So I gave him the thing, and I convinced him to drink it. And as he was drinking it, I had a torch, and I just bonked him on the head with it, so it broke, lit him on fire. Yeah. So that's what initiated combat, but that was a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite moments I've ever done in D&D.
That's hilarious.
Awesome. So using my charismatic, I don't need to be the strongest to take that guy out because I use my words.
Outsmart someone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like in Game of Thrones, man. Tyrion, he's not the biggest guy, but he can still win because he's got charisma.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly. So
absolutely. So kind of on with the fact of different races and classes have different skill sets and abilities. Mm-hmm. Dungeons and Dragons kind of has a common lore, and I mean that ranges from anything that there are fantasy enemies in the world like dragons and centaurs and werewolves, to the fact that the dwarven race and the elven race, they don't get along, they don't see eye to eye, literally and figuratively. And then that there's magic in the world and stuff like that. But there's a ton of different races and a ton of different classes. And races would be elves, humans, orcs. Yep, that's another great one.
I guess technically.
Half-orcs
Monks,
too.
Right?
That would be a class.
Be a class.
That would be a class.
What are we going through again?
Races.
My mistake.
Lizard folk, those are great.
Lizard folk,
they get a breath weapon.
Used to a lizard person, that one's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's Dragonborn.
That's Dragonborn.
I'm sorry, lizard folk are different.
Lizard folk do have cool stuff. I'm pretty sure they can do a bite action too and stuff like that. So your race, which isn't oh yeah, my guy's white, or oh yeah, my guy's Asian, because that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's all about
if you're human, you're human in this, guys.
Yeah, there's certain D&D lore races.
Yeah.
Those give you special abilities too, and then there's
I'm Italian.
Yeah, there. And I get a +2 on sauce checks.
Sauce checks. How's the pasta doing?
How robust is that marinara?
Roll a D10.
Yeah.
And
then there's
actually, is it? Oh, it is.
There's also classes which more so really determine what your strong suits are. So anything from a fighter, which is pretty self-explanatory, to a wizard, which is going to be not as good at fighting, but they can cast really cool spells. To a druid, who is a caster based on nature, so they cast spells that could grow a tree or call lightning to strike somebody or something like that. They can also change into an animal.
And you also have a bard too. Is that just still those?
Yeah, there's a bard.
Yeah. And they're very charismatic.
charismatic.
They use
singing song.
Yeah, their magic is based off like their performance, so they can do some fun stuff with that. It's really fun to role play one.
Have a little Broadway show in the middle of a battle.
I've always wanted to run a campaign or be a part of a campaign where everyone plays a bard and essentially you're like a traveling band.
Dude,
that tries to make it big.
And every time they get in combat, they have to like sing and song their way out of there.
Yeah, I've also always wanted to play a bard that like just does oration. Like they don't do song and dance. They just like give you like a heartfelt speech, you know, and that's what gives inspiration. Because that's the other cool thing about bards is they can play a song or say something or whatever, and they give you inspiration, which helps you like helps you in the future. You can use
I just had a great idea for like a little one-off or something. So like imagine like the Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
Kind of esque, like an old cathedral theater type of deal, and all of the characters are bards. Like everybody that's checked in, you are a bard, and your antagonist is like a phantom of some sort, and you got like gargoyles you gotta fight, something like that. But I don't know if it'd be a one-off or you could do maybe a couple missions, something like that, based around it. But it'd be all totally based around
the Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
I love it, man. That would be a lot of fun, just as like a one-off type thing. That would be a lot of fun.
Just a really quick one.
You could even introduce that traveling band idea as just like a group of NPCs that just like travel around, and like if you ever get in combat in town, they can just like give out inspiration by rocking out on stage, you know?
Yep.
That would definitely be awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of my favorite thing about the game is how stories just go haywire.
How anything can happen.
You never know what's really going to go down. You just, whether you're just starting fresh on a brand new campaign with some friends or you're just chucked right into the middle of it, seeing that from both spectrums, I find that really, really fun to jump right into something that you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And you might not get all the backstory there, but you got to figure out what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got to really drive the game. I mean, like, once the DM says you're in this place, it's fair game. You know? And that's the coolest part.
Yeah.
Definitely the coolest part.
Yeah. Basing it out, like, your world develops after, like, character actions, and that's, like we were doing a campaign. Shane was in it, and he was the one who was about to drive this campaign into a completely opposite direction of the choice. Basically, I'll get into more of the story later, but there's a necromancer they were hunting down. They ended up meeting him face to face, and he offered them like, "Hey, let me join me, and like I'll make sure you live forever." He was lying about that.
Seems like a lie.
Yeah, but he would have like used them. They would have been like his champions, and
dang.
you know, basically they would have been on the other side of the war. And Shane was the only one that was remotely interested. He was
my
like,
character was pretty evil.
Yeah, he murdered an old man.
Well, okay, hold on. Let me justify just a little bit. So.
You can't justify. You murdered him in his own bed.
Right. Well, let me justify my character a little more. So I had a Halfling Rogue, which is a halfling is kind of imagine like hobbits from the Shire. You know, they're short little guys,
big feet.
Yeah, hairy feet, which is pretty true to life. But but I was a Halfling Rogue, and in my backstory, I wrote about this. My backstory was I was an author, and my most famous work was a biography about a boat captain named Farkas. And when I escaped out of the town, I came across Farkas's house, and I was pretty evil, and I killed him.
You murdered the author.
Wait, it gets worse. No, I murdered the boat captain. I was the author.
You're the author of him. Okay. Of his story.
I'm not proud, but I killed him, and I was too weak to carry him out of the house, so I just left him in his bed and closed off his room. And then I inhabited the house and continued to live there.
No!
It gets worse.
It gets way worse. I went back into town, and I befriended the local barkeep. Remember, this is the town that was overrun by orcs, and all the people were indentured servants. And I wanted this guy to help me with whatever. So I was like, hey man, I have a house outside town, like let's get you out of here. So we snuck out of town, we get back, and as we're walking up, Nick, who's DMing this, throws me the biggest fucking curveball, and he goes, what was the guy's name? Dick?
Yeah.
Dick starts going, oh, I recognize this place. My grandpa lives just over here.
Oh.
This is the boat captain's grandson. I murdered this guy's grandpa.
You already killed him and he's in the house.
Yeah, and we get to the house and I'm like, and there's a shed out back, and I was like, hey man, I don't want you living in the house. Because I didn't tell him this, but his dead grandpa's upstairs. And I was like, you can just live in the shed. The whole
That's
time
all
he's like,
you.
it's really familiar. This is oddly familiar.
So did he just stay back there?
Yeah, he just lived in the shed.
Never came in the house.
Nope, he listened very well. But
I thought you were gonna say he came in, saw the grandpa, and he's like, nah, this is what I'm gonna do to you.
Yeah.
Killed him.
But this character, like, initially started off as evil, and I played that pretty well. Like, we did a heist that was really fun.
I'm still mad about the heist.
I stole a bunch of shit. Like Nick said, I was ready to, like, join the big bad guy right away. Like, he was like, hey, you just gotta fight for me, and yeah, you'll be our champions. And
no
everything.
hesitation.
And the entire party was like, nah, I don't think so. And I was like, we should hear him out.
Yeah.
Might be fun.
Yeah.
But, I mean, my character was redeemed quite a bit because I did a lot of, like, the political talk and stuff like that. I mean, maybe that doesn't redeem my character a whole lot because politics.
You murdered Farkas.
Pieces of shit. I know, that one.
You were very kind of all over the place with morality. I feel like your character was fine with doing shit, well, besides murdering someone. He was fine with doing evil shit that really wouldn't affect anyone. Besides murdering Farkas. But
poor guy.
He's I just remember anytime you would talk to one of the kings, it would always be for the greater good. And you guys just kept saying that. And eventually the people got really upset and kept saying, what is the greater good? You keep talking about it.
I was really good at getting what I wanted, that's for sure. So maybe I never redeemed my character.
No, not really. He was kind of a piece of shit.
I think in the who's that? Oh,
he died?
Draven? Yeah.
Good.
My character's name was Draven.
It's called karma, my friend.
He died, but he died in like the most heroic way. I mean, we were
It's not fair.
we were fighting Yagsho, the big bad, and then he had reincarnated all these dead bodies into this like it was like a 5 or 6 story golem. Like just this huge animated mass of dead bodies.
Whoa.
And pretty much like everyone was down except for like me and one other member of our party, and I rolled a 20 on this attack roll. It was the most clutch attack, and I dropped him down to like almost nothing, and then his next blow to me, I like went down and I was at 0 hit points.
Oh man.
And then somebody else finished him off, but yeah, I died in the line of battle, and I had a statue erected for me and everything like that.
Yeah. So a little tie into like your class, and you have a certain level of hit points.
Yeah.
So you can take a certain amount of damage.
Right.
You can deal a certain amount of damage, of course. You were talking about. You said you rolled a d20. I don't know if we really touched base on that when we were talking about the die, but if you rock a perfect 20.
It's usually a critical success.
Critical success. So you're probably going to do something pretty sweet.
Right. It's essentially like your one ticket to like do what you want. So if you're like, oh, I wanna climb up this tree, and you roll a d20 and you hit that 20, you don't just climb up the tree. You like
triple
run
backflip.
up. Yeah, you like run up the trunk, and then you do a backflip onto a branch, and then you like jump up and do like a triple 360 and fucking gymnast swing up to the top, and everyone in town applauds. Like your critical success is, just the picture-perfect version of that happening.
Yeah, and then like a critical failure on the other spectrum if you get a 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
That you fucked up big time.
You really botched it, and like in that battle, what you're saying against the Colossus of corpses, like you're like, all right, attack him this way, and it's like, all right, you tried to shoot an arrow at him, but it ended up hitting one of the corpses in the skull. It fell out and it whacked your pinky toe, and now you're crying in the corner.
Yeah, or you shoot at somebody who is being attacked by your homie or something, and if you roll a critical failure, maybe you shoot your homie and you deal that damage to them.
Exactly.
That's what I usually would do.
Yeah,
kind of make
I think it makes so much sense too, because like if
it was situation.
If you're fighting somebody hand to hand and I'm standing back and I'm shooting at them with a crossbow, and I fail, who's to say that, I just fucked up and I shot them in the knee. I shot my best friend in the knee.
Exactly. You can botch it pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Something I kind of noticed about my first couple runs was it felt like it was a little bit difficult, and that's, I think, because I don't know, I don't know the insides and the outsides of the mechanics. I don't know what I can ask when I'm in a setting, maybe not the combat setting, but like I'm just here in this. We just entered this room. There's this and this and this and this, and I didn't know, I didn't know how to like progress the story forward. I didn't know how to ask the right questions to like get information so we could propel ourselves. Like usually I'm pretty good at like teamwork situations like that, or even being a leader in some situations where like I can help the team. But when we were playing, I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of questions. What would you guys say is, as a player and maybe as a DM, like how to keep the game moving in a situation?
One thing that I did, especially for like brand new players, is I generally give them an NPC companion. So what does that mean? So an NPC is a non-playable character, so a non-player character in this situation. So like it's someone I control. So with my first group, I had a gnome wizard named Tomotort, who was he was so annoying. They all hated him. He ended up being the big bad, but they did not like him. But basically, what he did was he was kind of like okay, what do we do now? Hey guys, let's go over here. And like kind of guiding them lightly, not really trying to take them on a railroad, because if they wanted to do something on their own, they could do that. But like if they just didn't know what to do, I generally give them something. With you, it was Dick. I gave you Dick, and he was like, oh, well, maybe we should do this. So yeah, that's kind of how that's how
me just came out. I gave you Dick.
Continue. I guess I didn't really
continue. My mistake.
But that's what I kind of do. And in a situation like if a character is gonna like kind of drop in, drop out, I guess like more in your situation, it would kind of be like I'm just gonna kind of follow the party around. Yep. So like when I dropped into Shane's campaign for that one session, like Shane had been keeping me pretty up to date, and we literally talked about the session before it went down. Yeah. So I knew what was gonna happen. I did a pretty good job of not metagaming that, but like, you just kind of would sit along for the ride until you kind of get a grasp. Now, if you're going to put them in a situation where it's like, you wake up, like a brand new player, okay, you wake up in a room and it's totally dark and you have chains. Okay, what am I supposed to do here? You know, like in a situation, and then you just leave them at that. So, there's a big debate in the Dungeons and Dragons community, about Railroad versus Sandbox. Whereas Sandbox is literally you create a world and you can create different plot threads. We call them breadcrumbs, where basically like you talk to somebody, they're like, oh, this person over here like has blah blah blah. So then you go over to that person, boom, it starts a quest line, right? That's more of like a Sandbox type where they can do whatever they want. Whereas a Railroad's more of a linear story, kind of like a Call of Duty game, where it's a very linear story. You go from point A to point B, and I think that there's elements from both. The story I created was more railroady, but it wasn't like a lot of people. The term railroad has a negative connotation in the community because it's basically like you're forcing your players down this path. That's not kind of how I look at it. I look at it as these are the main plot points. Now, if they want to change something, I will adapt. I will adapt and overcome.
Make the railroad change.
Yeah, exactly. There's levers on the tracks. You can do whatever you want, man. I don't care.
East or West,
but I think it's important especially like for people who are newer to D&D, to have a pretty structured idea before you just throw them in there. Now, if I'm a brand new player and you throw me in a sandbox, I would be overwhelmed and I wouldn't know what to do.
That's
and I'd
a
probably
little bit how
find
I
it.
felt. I think the first one that we did was like Railroad. It was very linear.
Well fixed. Yeah.
And then when I jumped in with it, it was very sandboxy. It was felt very open, freedom. So
Right.
and I didn't have all the points. You gave me most of it, but being as my first kind of a sandbox situation, I felt very, I wouldn't say hopeless, but just very like unuseful.
And that's kind of how like my first campaign kind of went. It was a very linear, like it was a very Railroad type experience, but my players still liked it because it was kind of, but it was also kind of a sandbox because it was like, okay, you go here, here, and here. Where do you want to go? We'll go here. All right, now you start that plot line, and you'll go through that plot line, and then, okay, I want to go here, here, or here. So then the second one was more sandboxy, but still I kind of had like a general, like I kind of knew what they were going to do, like before the session started, so I kind of prepped for that. I'm not huge on prep. I think it's important, and I do think you should have some structure to it.
Some pre-production.
But I don't, me personally, I'm not a big guy on, I'm going to spend 7-8 hours on prepping it because I know my players are just going to not do what I prep on it. So it's just kind of like, I get the general idea of what I want this session to be, and if they want to do something else, I'll roll with it. I'll work with it. But that's just kind of how I do it personally.
Yeah, and I think the whole idea of like Railroad versus Sandbox is interesting. I like the term sandbox. I had never heard that, but
I just hear it for video games. Skyrim.
Right. Yeah, and I think what I like to do is, because I like the idea that you can do anything, so I try and do more sandboxy type, which is probably why you kind of felt like high and dry in that one. But one thing I also like to do is when I'm describing a setting or something in a sandbox world, I like to, maybe you describe that magic archway in a couple more sentences, then you describe the fact that there's like a chandelier, to give
Paint
maybe
a picture a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe you hint at the fact that that's there's something important about that to pique interest for characters and stuff. Like if I tell you, you walk into a room and it's cement floors, and there's archways going intermittently down this path throughout the room, and on either side there's paintings and some tables and stuff, but at the end of that archway and that pathway there's a tome or like a book sitting on a pedestal, and you can see that there's a light coming down and it's landing right onto the book, and the book almost has like this sparkling appearance and mystical glow. What would you like to do in this room? You're more apt to be like, oh, what's up with this book?
Let's take a look around the room, maybe just a hair prior to going to the book, because the book could potentially be a trap. You're like, oh, it's just being presented to you like this holy book. Then you're like, this has got to have some kind of some good things for me or the crew that we're rolling with, and everybody, of course, wants to immediately go to the book. And it's sort of like the Indiana Jones scene, you got to switch out the sand,
Yeah, have the book of sand. And, yeah, absolutely. So yeah.
And that's great when you have like an image. That's something with this game is you don't have visuals other than if you're maybe in combat, you have a piece of graph paper and you kind of map just generally the boundaries of where this arena is.
Yeah.
And then you can move spaces based, when you have an attack move, you also have a move, you can move your man to or closer or away from an enemy or totally retreat if you need to, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of your visual for combat. Outside of combat, though, you're kind of limited to your own imagination. That's where story can really.
You can really picture some crazy stuff, That's my favorite part. It's like it's all imagination. Really, like lets you just picture whatever you want. Like Shane's character Dre may look totally different in my head than it does in his. And neither of us are technically right because there's no. Well, I mean, you'd probably be technically right.
I guess I'd be closer to being right since it was
your character. It's your idea of what he looks like. But that's like one thing that I think is.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like reading a book in the sense that like the story is created and it's made, but the vision of it is completely up to each person taking it in.
Exactly. I had a question. I'm asking a lot of questions here.
No, I actually think it's great. It's great that you're asking questions. One, because like Nick and I have a couple of years of experience. I mean,
exactly.
Nick is the one I go to when I have any questions too, and I think that listeners who listeners who may not know a ton about D&D are probably very appreciative of you asking questions and stuff. So yeah.
So a question that I was thinking about earlier, it was, is there such a thing as karma in the world of D&D? If you do like Shane, as Draven, you murdered Farkas, can that hold repercussions in future situations at random? Is there such a thing as karma?
I don't know. You can make it a mechanic. Yeah. There's a couple of mechanics. There's like insanity mechanics. There are things you can add. Mm-hmm. I personally don't. There's enough randomness in the game as it is that I don't really think it'd be like an entirely fair thing. Now, dude, like, I'm saying at random. Now, there might be repercussions based on your just direct action. Directly, you murdered Farkas. His grandson found out. Now he's going to kill you. Yeah. Boom. Direct repercussion. Now, because he murdered Farkas, does that mean one day a petty thief in some town like steals his gold pouch and now he has no money? Probably not. That might happen, but I don't think it'd be like
you're walking in the woods.
It is something you can do. I just kind of stay away from it because, like, me personally, it frustrates me, like, as a player of both Dungeons and Dragons and video games, to just get like really shitty luck. It just frustrates me because, like, you could do everything perfect skill based wise, and then just when it comes down to the roll, mess it up, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart, and it's just like, all right, sick. Like,
people probably wouldn't want to play video games or Dungeons and Dragons if it was like
purely luck based.
You're like, I did this one thing that was good, did this one thing that was bad, and then I was walking through the woods and a tree fell on my head, and now the game is over.
Yeah, exactly.
Start over. Good luck.
I know, like, Fallout uses a karma system, but that's more of like a good evil alignment.
And
system.
It's not really
karma.
Like, it's not even like situationally based. Like, oh, now you just got squatted up on by like 50 death claws.
Yeah.
Like, because you stole that one sweet roll off somebody's table at the beginning of the game, you know?
Yeah, and I think another important thing is having a threshold of time, you know? If when Draven killed Farkas...
No, you did it. Come now, Shane.
Stop, it's hard for me to get to sleep already.
Quit rubbing it in, man.
Yeah, dude, therapy is a wonderful thing, but even that won't erase what happened to Farkas. Rest in peace. You know, if Draven kills Farkas and 3 months down the road, you know, he gets stabbed in a street corner and the guy goes, "You killed Farkas," you know, like, it doesn't make sense. It's just like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, that was so long ago. And
I'm thinking more just like random variables, like how the idea of karma is in life.
Yeah, you know? I think it's as much a thing as the players think it's a thing. You know, if I tell you, oh yeah, you found a fortune on the ground in the game, and it says, "Good luck is coming your way," and then you're in a dungeon in the next session and you happen to find a magic item, are you gonna think like? If you think back to, I got that good luck is coming my way fortune. Yeah. If you think back to it, and if that's how you justify that happening,
so be it.
As the DM, I'm not telling you a damn thing. Yep, that's what happened because of that. Yeah. Absolutely.
You see it how you want to see it.
Exactly.
It's like in life, there's a lot of coincidences, but people like to believe it's based on some good deeds.
Yeah, and I think that's the coolest part, too, is like your character, depending on like the type of role playing you like to do in the game, is a reflection of you, you know, like
a lot of my players like it's like our friend Alex, what up Alex, his character Apollo was pretty much just Alex. in the medieval time with a dirty stash and a sword for a hand, so so it does do a lot of like reflecting. But like Corey, what up, Corey? His characters were a lot different than like him in real life. They were all role played pretty well. Except for the second one.
Yeah.
Nobody liked
I don't remember her name, but
nobody does.
There's a reason
Nobody
why.
should.
It was pretty rough. But yeah, I mean, like, I think you play to your strengths in real life. I mean, like I said, when we were talking with Royalty, I was really good at that because I'm kind of a schmoozer in real life. I like to you know, pump people's tires and get them, you know. I like to, you know, talk with people, and I think that helps play into that. Whereas, like, our buddy Tom is he's good at, like, getting the most out of his characters, and he builds really strong characters. So oftentimes, he destroys it in fighting. Like, the dude could...
He's a monk, right?
In this one, yeah.
In this past one, yep.
Yeah, I remember when we were playing. He does a lot of damage with those
daggers. He was
man.
doing so much damage, and like he's really good at getting the most out of his characters on physical side. But you know, maybe he doesn't have as much charisma or whatever. He kind of
talking his way out of situations.
Yeah, I mean, he prioritizes like the strength and stuff like that over charisma, where I might play it differently or something. So,
and that's the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons is you can build. Two people can be playing the same class and build it completely differently. As fighter is probably the most versatile one because fighters have fighting styles, so they can be 2-weapon fighter, they can be a sword and shield fighter, they can be an archer fighter. They have all sorts of. It's kind of the most basic class, and people kind of they kind of poop on it. They think that like, oh, you play a fighter, that's boring. But I mean, it's like, dude, it's easy and it's still pretty fun. Like Alex was a fighter for us, and he had a great time. He loved his fighter.
Yeah,
the only thing he wanted to be able to like talk to people better, like be able to be more charismatic.
Yeah.
But we were like just so far in that it was like, please don't re-roll. Your character's integral to the story. At this point, like unless he dies, I really would prefer if you didn't.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any good stories from D&D? I mean, I know we've been kind of talking about our experiences up until now, but anything that was really like for you memorable, that was like, oh man, that made you want to play D&D more and more.
Oh man.
I think for me, it was the first one-off, and it's something that you do for one-offs, I think is what you were saying, is at the end of the entire thing, you know, everyone goes back to the tavern or something, and everyone hangs out, and he said, all right, I want everybody to roll a D20, and based on what you get from 1 to 20, I'm going to tell you how your night went. You're like, I'm going to tell you what happens in this situation.
Or,
and then you just
like what happens after the campaign.
We used to do that all the time.
Yeah, I know, I stole that from you because it's such a great idea. And so, like, for instance, if you roll a 20, man, you had a great night.
Got wasted, got 4 girls.
You got that perfect level of wasted where you just feel awesome. You know, like you found a sack of 1,000 gold on the ground. You know, made whoopee with somebody you found to just be an absolute 12 out of 10. You know, you went on whoopee.
I was going to say, like, what, like a cushion?
Yeah.
You guys crafted a whoopee cushion?
Yeah, and then you crafted that whoopee cushion and went on to be the richest person in the realm. Like, that's a 20. A 1 is like... After
this is where it gets fun.
After you get back to the town, you go to take a shot and
accidentally shit your pants.
You spill half of it on your face. You trip over and it lights your face on fire because you hit a candle. You're burned and deformed.
And you shit your pants and wreck their rugs, so they veto you from the bar. You go outside.
You get the shit beat out of you
by the whole town.
That was the only inn, so now you have to sleep on the street.
Yeah. Then they drag you out of town, bury you, just your head out, and then they throw a bunch of bird feed around, and good luck. So how was your night?
Yeah.
And then it can be anything. I like it personally when it's in between. Like, I like to see what you're going to do in between, like, the 6.
You have some good or some bad.
You had a few shots. You played a game of darts, and you lost.
You found some pipe weed, though, so that was really cool.
Some old Toby.
Yield.
Yeah.
It could go well.
And
it bad.
You know, your night ended with you throwing up, but you had a good time, and you're a little hungover in the morning, but it's all right. You manage.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts Well, I'll tell you why I want to keep DMing. I'll do two kind of. What made me want to kind of keep DMing, and then what made me kind of want to, kind of keep playing. Well, start playing more than DMing. You know what I'm kind of saying. So, one of my favorite moments, honestly, was the end of the campaign, like being able to make that big bad just of this monstrosity of a monster you guys had to take down, which it proved really difficult. Lost 2 party members during it. And just like the music and everything was awesome, and it was just like a really powerful music. It got a little bit emotional when Draven went down.
Got intense.
Yeah, so it was very. That is like, I live for moments like those. I'm a big believer of the rule of cool. Like, even if it's not in the rule book, if it's cool enough, I'm down. Like, I don't care. The rule of cool is vital in Dungeons and Dragons, because like if someone has a really cool idea, I'm not just gonna say no because in the rules it says I don't care, dude. Let them do it. And to be fair, the same does go for like the monsters and stuff that they fight. Because if I think something's really cool, I'm gonna allow it. I don't care if it's not in the rules. Yeah. I'm the rule maker. Yeah, I'm the dungeon master. So whatever I say pretty much goes. And I try not to use that too much, but like if it's something badass, I'm gonna let it happen. Of course. Like when I introduced, I'll go to another example. When I introduced the undead dragon, because they had killed a dragon earlier in the campaign,
somebody resurrected because he was a necromancer.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So he brought it back, and then they had to fight it again, even more powerful this time. Corey's character, he wanted to reroll. I was like, all right, then I'm going to kill your character off. He was like, okay, that's fine. I was like, all right, but I'm going to do it in like a cinematic sense, so nothing can stop this. Like, period, point blank. Like, I'm going to take it. So like, she was outside for some reason, and then like the dragon like landed on her and like ripped her on the part in the ground, and then like just like it was just like this this very graphically detailed. I don't remember exactly how it described it.
What you're up against.
Yes, exactly. Like, and let them know like this is a much more powerful.
This thing isn't fucking around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
smeared her guts.
Yeah, exactly. And then like if it would have survived, I was gonna have it like bring her with him and then resurrect it and make her a way cooler character.
Oh no, that was the annoying lady, right?
Yeah.
So you had an undead nuisance.
Yeah, exactly. But then I was like, wait, I don't want that thing to exist. No way.
Could be a sequel.
Yeah, exactly. And then as a player, honestly, it was in the one-off that Corey actually ran. It's this like pretty like Esteem Plume Mountain, I think it's called, and it's a pretty basic like. It's not a one shot per se. It's probably take about a month to do, but it's not a super long campaign. To basically go around, collect these super powerful weapons, and then you leave, and that's like it, because there's like
you gotta get the diddler.
Yeah, you gotta get the diddler. Well, the diddler I guess isn't supposed to exist, but Corey made him exist.
Yeah,
I'm still a little sad about that fight.
So this essentially it was like this guy was like kidnapping.
He would take kids and he was a lich, so he'd take kids and use their souls to power his phylactery.
Yeah.
But we were just like,
he's diddling kids. He's taking kids. So diddling. So our big bad for that short campaign was the diddler.
Yeah. So we were chasing down the diddler.
So the whole time we were like, we gotta get this diddler. Dude, fuck this.
Something else we gotta do, but first the diddler. Bust him.
So I was playing a half-orc barbarian, and basically. And I did Path of the Bear, so I took half damage from basically everything, which was awesome.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was dope. Whenever I was raging, and I got.
Does that last 3?
It lasts. It lasts as long as you either get hit or make a hit in a round.
Just every time. Almost.
Pretty much, especially if you're a barbarian. Yeah. So basically, I got this Black Razor, which gives you ability called Haste, also, which makes you move twice as fast, and you get an extra action. Wow. So I was able to use that, haste myself, and rage. So I was doing way bonus damage, and I was just I was full on Cloud from Final Fantasy status. I was just raging, and we had to fight these basically they're fire genies basically. They're genies that are on fire. We had to fight them, and I'm pretty sure I did 92 damage or something in one round. It just obliterated the thing in one hit. Which it's just when you hit that power level, it's just really cool. And the only downside really to Black Razor is it can talk to you, and you have to feed it souls once every 24 hours.
So where do you get souls?
Just kill someone with the blade.
True.
The only downside, because we were fighting a lich, which is undead, is if you attack with that weapon against an undead, it does, I think it does 1d12 necrotic damage, which like isn't a lot, but it does it to you. But then it also heals the undead thing. Or no. It does its normal damage, which is necrotic damage to the undead, so it'll heal it, and then it does 1d12 to you. So like it just kind of like hurts you and heals them. Yeah. And I remember this was just such an upsetting moment because the guy who was DMing it, then he didn't really use the full potential of the big bad. Like if he did, we would have died way quicker. But he kind of just wanted us to win, which is like fine. But I kind of wanted him to go all in. So it's like a little split. It's like, oh, cool, we won, but also like, dang, like he could have just absolutely destroyed us.
You almost wanted him to sweep the floor with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's a weird. Thok had weird fetishes. All right,
Yeah,
he's into that stuff. Why do you think Gillian has one eye now, man? But I knew this guy was undead, so I didn't want to use Black Razor, but I was still hasty, I was still raging, so I got like all my bonus attacks.
So the Diddler was undead?
The Diddler was undead, yeah, because he was a lich. So I pulled out my axe, which was just a regular axe. Here's the thing about when you get to a certain level in D&D, all those like monsters you fight pretty much can only be hurt by magical weapons. Which kind of takes a lot of like the improv weapons out and stuff, which makes me feel sad. So I pulled out my regular axe, and I think I did 89 damage in one attack with it. But it ended up doing nothing because it wasn't enchanted. I was just so upset. I was just so mad. I was just like, dude, I literally just like, I think I got like 2 crits in there, and like I was just going off on this guy, and it just like, Ting. It's like when like some like I don't know like Dragon Ball Z like when like the people who are like not shit are trying to like hit Goku and he's just like chilling and he's like, all right, stop it. Yeah, exactly. Like and that's what it felt like. It was just like I'm about to destroy this man, and then just nothing. But that honestly, like having that weapon made me like, dang, I really want to play D&D like as a player, because like when you get to certain points, you can just do some nasty stuff like that.
And you can always enchant some weapons, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. For the right price.
Exactly.
You find it enchanted.
There was a time in my game where I kind of messed up. I took it back. I was like, no, but I basically like gave them runes instead of enchants. They were like, but I didn't scale the prices properly, so I was like, oh, there's like this type of rune, and then like their weapons got like way stronger than the point they were at, and I was just like, guys, no. Like I thought this was a cool idea. I thought this would have been an interesting mechanic to give you guys some like cool elements to play around with. No, I'm taking it back. I'll give you guys something else, but it just was not. They were like, because our buddy Nabs, shout out, he had a ton of money. Like he had just a ridiculous amount of money, so he was getting like plus 2d12 on his weapons and stuff, which like he just would have been walking around like doing like 40-50 damage a hit. I was just like, all right, I can't do it, because then we would have been I would have had to make them have higher health, which in turn makes them have more attack, which in turn then makes these guys glass cannons. So like they could do the damage,
but you can't take it.
Yeah, exactly. So like it just would have been like this like risky game the whole time that's all based on RNG, and I was like, no, I'm shutting it down. We're taking, here's your money back. Take it back. I'll figure something else out for you guys.
So,
all right?
Speaking of all that money, I think my favorite, and this is how Nabs got his riches.
Yeah.
My favorite D&D moment was Nabs and I wanted to run a heist where we were going to steal from this gambling ring. So there was a coliseum at this dwarven faction, essentially, and one of our buddies was fighting in it, and they had like this tournament going on. People could make bets on them.
Wasn't that the babies fighting?
Was
that in your campaign?
No, that was his campaign.
That was my campaign.
Yeah, he also had a baby fighting ring.
No, it was kids in like kid show costumes. So like I had Elmo and Mickey Mouse fighting.
Yeah.
Shit, that was a very dark moment.
I can imagine.
But anyways, so we were at this dwarven fighting coliseum, and they had a betting booth where you could place bets on who wins and loses and stuff.
Yeah.
And we wanted to steal from the betting booth, and so we, so I think Nabs, like essentially got a job working there, and what we had to do was they like kept it in this guarded safe, where all the money would be like at the booth, and then at the end of the day they'd bring it into this safe. And Nabs and I it was probably like a week long where we like conspired on how we were gonna do this and like how much money we were getting, because I worked the streets pulling in money and bringing it to the booth so that we could get more money to steal later.
Yeah.
And I thought I kept some of that in pocket. Maybe I didn't, but at the end of it, it was kind of all up to Nabs, because so they went to like take the money, all the money that was there on the final day of the fight, into like the vault.
Mm-hmm.
And Nabs used disguise self to disguise himself as one of the guards, which is such a risky move, because like at any moment they can be like, "Oh, what's your wife's birthday?" or something, and you're like, you make a check to see if you know that,
and it's you versus 10 guards,
right? Yeah, and you're just dead.
Yeah.
But he went into the vault, and what was it, Nick? Do you remember what they like asked him, or what happened?
I don't remember, but it was a very tense situation where basically he needed like an 18 or up to get it.
Yeah, it was essentially like, oh shit, I wish I remembered it, but
I don't either. I just remember we were playing like heisty music at the same time. That was pretty sick.
It was something to do with like the guy he was, he looked like. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure. No, I remember what happened. I don't remember what that one was, but I remember how he became that guy, because Nabs and I followed the guy to the bathroom.
Yeah, and murdered him in the bathroom.
And we murdered him in the bathroom stall. Nabs took his clothes, disguised himself as the guy we had just killed in the bathroom.
Left him in the stall.
Yeah, and then we left. And then it was something about like...
He was talking to the boss. I remember the boss like befriended him and was just like so happy. He was like, "I love this worker, man.
Yeah.
Here's a raise." And was like giving him all this stuff, trying to make him feel bad.
Yeah,
basically.
And it was something about like that guy's backstory. And Nabs rolled either like a 19 or a 20 or something.
No.
Yeah, critted on it. And we got 27,000 gold from this heist. Oh my god, dude.
You guys just cleaned it.
Fucking amazing. Funny though, later we went back to that Coliseum, and the owner was like, "Man, we got robbed, and it totally toppled our economy, and it toppled like our fighting ring and everything.
It's done, man."
And we were like, "Oh shit, dude! Like, sorry." And so we were like, "Well, let's have another event, and it'll drum up money." And this is actually another really cool thing that Nick did. We essentially our party was like the advertising crew,
nice.
And we were the fighters. So when the guy agreed to have the fight, he let us do all the advertising. And I remember that night, like during the session, I wrote up on the back of like an empty character sheet. I wrote up like what the billboard would say, what the signs we were posting, and it was like, you know, team deathmatch, 4 against 4, one party enters.
Sunday.
Yeah, two parties enter, one party leaves. I even had some fine print about like, you know, enter now to like, you know, win this prize, and then at the bottom it was like any volunteers who entered surrender their right to any prize money and shit. Yeah. Did them real dirty.
You do like a little raffle thing for like the kids and stuff. Like,
yeah.
If you enter the raffle thing, you're actually subjected to fighting. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna have to fight.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, there are so many different examples. Like in the last session we did with the campaign I'm running now, so I killed everyone in one session except for like 1 or 2 guys. One of the guys that didn't die was named Crew, who ended up, he had a magic item that would permanently attach to his hand that would make him go berserk. Mm. And the new party members were tasked with going and finding him and talking to him about like what happened with the old party to kind of catch them up to speed. And when the party went to talk with him, Crew was like, cut this fucking thing off, because it drove him insane. Because every time anybody gets too close to this
sword
weapon, it's called the Berserker Battle Axe or something like that. he would have to like attack them, and he would go insane and just start attacking whatever was closest. And he was like, "Oh, cut this thing off, and I'll tell you whatever you need to know." So they went into the bathroom stall. So imagine, yeah, Charlie was Crew. So imagine a handicap stall.
What up, Charlie?
Imagine a handicap stall, and there's 3 people in this handicap stall, and Crew's like, "Cut this thing off," and one guy's like, "All right, we're gonna cut it off." He goes to cut it off, and of course, the second he tries to cut it off, Crew goes nuts because of the Berserker axe. Yeah. And they kill this guy in the bathroom stall.
On accident?
No. Well, I mean, they
knew what would happen, but it was like...
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, shit like that just happens. Like, it just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you got a dead body in a bathroom stall, and a random bystander just walks in and is like, "Wow, why is there so much blood in here?" And that's where the story starts, you know? Like, that's when you're like, "Oh, fuck, what are we going to do with the dead body and the fact that we're covered in blood and this guy who's now a witness?"
We may be wanted now.
Yeah, do you kill him, or do you, try and persuade him? Yeah. Do you cut his tongue out? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to do. But yeah, so there's just so many different outcomes when you're playing D&D. There's just a ton. You can never predict it.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
That's what makes it the best.
So, I also kind of wanted to talk about, like, the Dungeon Master, because playing is one thing, and I think it's one thing to, like, to show up and, take on the role of one of the party members and make decisions and fight bad guys and all that. You get to be the protagonist. You get to be the hero. But I think there's...
Or villain.
Whatever you want to be. But I think that there's a lot to be said about... I think there's a lot to be said about the guy behind the screen or the lady behind the screen, whomever is DMing. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, as DM, you're essentially the world creator, you're the referee, you're the rules maker, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of wanted to pick your brain, Nick, because I think one of the hardest things that I found was building a world and, like, setting up a session or, kind of like creating a way that the characters end up at a point without railroading them. How would you kind of do that with your campaigns?
So, as far as creating a world goes, I would kind of always, like, take inspiration from some, like, my favorite games and stories and stuff. So, like, for my first campaign I ran, I took a lot of elements from Lord of the Rings and then World of Warcraft. And then the second one was also a lot of World of Warcraft. I based a lot of kind of shit off of Warcraft. Where essentially, like, I just kind of, like, took kind of, like, plot points from it, or just kind of, like, looked at it and was like, okay, well, how can I put my own unique twist on this? Or kind of figure that out. So, like, for something like yours, like the post-apocalyptia, like, that would be a lot for me to chew off. But in terms of fantasy, like, I've played and, like, read and watched enough fantasy material to where I can kind of construct, like, I mean, there's going to be a lot of, a lot of cliche type deal. And they, they'll probably pick up on that if they've watched or seen enough. Sorry for the stutter there. Watched or seen enough material, but that's kind of how I did it. So, like, like, whether that's, like, stuff from the Void, which takes inspiration from, some of the, what's his name? I can't even think of it right now. The dude who wrote, Lovecraftian, that's what it is. J.P. Lovecraft, like, whether it's taking inspiration from that, which I did a lot of, because I really like that sort of stuff. I think that's really, really cool and has a lot of potential for, like, big bad stuff, or whether it's, like, some of the cities from Warcraft, or, some of the plot points from Game of Thrones, or anything like that. That's kind of how I construct my world, and then I kind of let my players run around, and, as far as, like, my characters go, those are kind of those are where I do a lot of my prep work, are in my characters rather than like the story itself. Because I really like to flesh those guys out. Because I think once you have a fully fleshed character and kind of know, okay, how would they react? You know, how would Uncle Rorik, or King Rorik as he became, how would he react to, you know, his, you know, to you guys finding out that his family practiced necromancy, and while he doesn't declare himself to be a necromancer or believe that it's a good magic, he knows it. How would he react to you guys finding that out? You know, would he be upset because you guys were snooping through his things and that's how you found out? Would he be trying to like calm you guys down, like, you know, I was only using it because that's what I thought was best in this situation, like stuff like that, you know? How would he react? Probably do the latter than the first, dude. Yeah. He was a pretty chill dude. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I did that. In terms of like setting up sessions, that was just kind of like a, hey guys, what works for you? And then just kind of basing it off that. It was really nice to be able to do it while we were all in school and like having like a decent amount of, I mean, we were all in school full time, but like we all had a day where we could all get together and play for hours, you know, you know, which was really convenient for, you know, in terms of storytelling and stuff, because like if we only did like an hour or two long sessions, like it wouldn't have been nearly as cool. Yeah. You know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with short sessions, because we did have to do some short sessions, but
just have to make them very vague.
Yeah, you got to make it brief and kind of like to the point. Doesn't really leave a lot of room for like messing around a lot, which we did do a lot of messing around, but that's what made it fun. You know,
you gotta have that.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot what the third thing you asked me was.
How do you create like a big bad and kind of tie that into how you create an end goal, where you see the party at the end if they're advantageous enough to come out on top?
So that's actually the first thing I do when I'm starting a campaign is I create the big bad, because I want to know, and like it can change, but generally it's not going to. They're going to be the cause of all the party's problems and distress, you know, like they're going to be the biggest thing that they are going to have to deal with, and I make it known early and I make it known often that this is where it's going. Yog Sho, the big bad you faced in my campaign, was a necromancer. Literally the first thing that they talked about in the campaign, they went and saw Oscar, who is this old senile wizard, hilarious guy. I love him so much. One of my favorite characters I've ever come up with. The most basic name too. He called the group from the first campaign together. It was like, hey guys, so my old buddy who lives across the sea in the continent of Noname, he's telling me that there's some weird stuff going on. There might be a civil war and this and that, and there might be necromancy, so go find out that. So chicka, head over to the other continent, you know, some other stuff happens in between. They talk to him, and he's like, yeah, there's necromancers. There's this guy we went to school with. His name's Yog Sho. Boom, there you go. Now you know who it is. Then you got to see him, and when you see him, when they saw him for the first time, it was known this dude's powerful. This guy is not to be, you know, messed around with. Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want to mess around with this dude, because the first thing that happens, they walk in, they basically like heard like, oh, he's down here. He's trying to complete this ritual to become a lich, so that he will be immortal, essentially, you know, undying. And so they walk into the room that he's powering in. They see the phylactery finally finish filling up with the souls. They see him change slightly. They rush him. They used a spell called air walking or wind walking or something like that basically gives them double speed, and they were rushing towards him. And he shoots a fireball at him and almost killed the entire party with a fireball.
One fireball.
And so they turned around and they left that pretty quick.
Hit the spell again. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of lets them know. Now, my first campaign that I ran, Tomotorn ended up being the big bad, and that was kind of a mix of running out of time and like them already hating him, even though he was like helping them. Yeah. So that one did end up changing, but the original one was just going to be a mind flare, one mind flare, not an army of mind flares, but just a mind flare. Which like they're powerful, but they're not super powerful. But for the level they would have been at, that would have been a very challenging fight for them. And like I gave them a name and everything, but we ended up. The timing didn't work out, so I ended up changing it. But he's still a character I haven't made. I might use him again in another story. Who knows what I'll use with them. The end goal usually kind of goes hand in hand with stopping the big bad. You know, at first you guys thought the end goal was stopping the Civil War, and then all of a sudden it evolved into we got to save the world. Which, like, you know, kind of happened. That's kind of where it escalates at. So usually I like grand, epic, like, bodacious, like endings to stuff. I love like having huge, like just explosive climactic stuff.
Extravagant.
Yeah, exactly. I love going over the top for this stuff. So usually my end goals like end up blowing up just to crazy proportions, whether it's saving the world or the universe or whatever you got to do. Usually it ends up doing something like that. But it doesn't always have to be that way. Your end goal could just be killing a guy. And stopping his, you know, and stopping this, like, underground syndicate. And maybe nobody even knows they exist, so you don't get appreciated like you should. But, hey, you know, that's just part of life. So
the whole plot was to get to Grandma's house and
exactly. And then at the end, hey, you got to Grandma's. So you might have had to stop a bunch of evil sorcerers along the way, but, hey, you got to Grammy's.
Well, and maybe sometimes and
Grammy turns out to be the big bad.
Or you complete half of it, where you got to Grandma's house, but... it wasn't a bunny, it was actually a ravenous wolf, and you had to kill it.
Yeah. There you go. He already ate Grandma.
Yeah. So I've got just something. I mean, maybe we could just like do like a little DMs corner and like just kind of like spitball some ideas. I had this idea. We were talking about this just now. The last like 5 minutes. I'm looking at this Christmas tree. We're doing a Christmas special. I'm thinking we just kind of.
This is the only part of the episode that's actually holiday related.
Yeah, exactly. So we were chuckle something in there. I was thinking, big bad, deranged Santa Claus with a candy cane cannon, and all of his elves are deranged. There's been too much Christmas spirit. And they just went psychotic and they're crazy, and you have to get to the North Pole and shut it down.
Anything that has Christmas spirit becomes like sentient,
deranged,
and deranged towards you. So like
Christmas trees.
So Christmas trees would be like tree ants, which are like these tree people. If you've ever seen whatever Lord of the Rings that was, they're like tree people. Yep. They like come to life, and that's how they like get after the party right away, and then you know soon after that, like. The wreaths above doors start falling down and like choking people out and stuff. And
You got gingerbread men running amok.
Plot. Christmas is coming, and when Christmas strikes, Santa's going out to deliver the presents, and it's going to destroy the world.
Instead of leaving presents under the tree, he's going to leave carnage in the house.
Toys that are psychotic.
He sees you when you sleep, and he knows when you're awake.
Yeah, he knows. He knows if you've been bad or good. So batten down the fucking hatches.
Ornaments or grenades.
I like it, dude. That'd be fun if you did like
Maybe we should do like a short little session where we just like
do it,
role play. Do like a tiny little 30-minute role play sesh where we do that.
Fun, man.
That'd be funny as shit.
Yeah, candy cane cannon Santa Claus.
Hell yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, then we'd all have to be like. I mean, you could still have like classes and races and everything, but you get to choose like what do you wear as your like I'm gonna wear like this really shitty Christmas sweater.
Some of his minions could be like carolers or bards. You know?
There you go.
That'd be funny.
Or you could, and then there's like a faction of people that are trying to like the kind of Grinches, like, but they're actually the good guys because they're trying to destroy Christmas spirit because it's evil.
I like that.
A little twist on that. On the old cliche. I like that.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
Look at this
guy. See what it do.
On the fly.
Yeah.
We are.
It's all the Christmas tree. Yeah. Glad you didn't put it down yet.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, just so everyone knows, I'm not sure when this will be out, but we're recording this on the 26th of December, so...
It'll probably be like a week and a half or 2 weeks. Christmas, so you guys will probably get it sometime New Year, after New Year.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know we might do one more podcast here while I'm home. And
we still have to do that ads podcast.
We might do ads and even another podcast. We got time.
Yeah, if you want to do the D&D one, I'm down.
Yeah, have Nick over. Maybe have Elliot over to help roleplay and
that'd be super fun.
Elliot.
Yeah.
You dropped the ball, man. No, I'm just kidding. It's all right.
So we'll wrap up here, but we really do appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to us talk about D&D.
It's been fun.
I know it's not necessarily something that's in everyone's wheelhouse. Typically, when you tell somebody about D&D, they imagine a bunch of fat nerdy dudes wearing wizards hats and having foam swords and just super nerdy, not cool. But it is a ton of fun. Like I said, my dad's played it. He had a blast playing it. My girlfriend Brooke has even played it, and she is like, that's not in her wheelhouse at all, but she has played it multiple times and had a ton of fun. I mean, it's a fun game for everyone.
As long as you expand that horizon and just allow yourself to try it, I guarantee
you're gonna.
As long as you're with a good crew, people that like to really.
It's like when I told Shane about it. Like Shane probably, we've talked about this. You had probably, if I hadn't come to you and asked you to come play with us, you probably would have never touched it.
I wouldn't be here right now talking to you guys about D&D.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You might not even be alive.
I could have died.
Yeah.
I could have.
Maybe one of those Wednesday nights.
D&D saved my life.
Not clickbait.
Yeah, not clickbait. So, if you're interested in D&D, search it out. Get some of your buddies together. Have fun with it. If you're in the Bloomington area and you're interested, hit up Nick Katasic.
That's
his phone number is.
He lives at this address.
Yeah. But yeah, so we might do that D&D episode. If that interests you guys, let us know. If we don't hear anything back, well, then we may do it or we may not. Who knows? But
we will see.
At any rate, you can like us or reach out to us on Facebook. You can download our episodes right from podbean.com if you look up narrativenerds.podbean.com. That's our feed. And then you can also follow us and listen to all of our content on Spotify. We're going to work on getting Apple Music into the mix, some of the other big platforms, Google Play if we can, or Google Music or whatever. So yeah, and if you guys have any questions or anything about D&D, let us know, because something that we really like, and obviously we feel strongly about since we did an episode on it. So yeah, we'd love to spread that to you.
Yeah, and if you guys have any interesting anecdotes, any points you want to chuck in about that potential D&D campaign, about the Christmas theme, if you guys got any other ideas,
let us know.
Please let us know, because we will definitely incorporate anything in there that sounds nice. So.
But yeah, and also we're gonna do a separate episode just for the ad labs. We know everybody likes those, so we're gonna do a whole Christmas special on those. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah, and thanks Nick for
thanks for having me, guys. It's fun. It's I always like talking about this stuff. So.
Yeah, and we
thank
really do
you,
appreciate
first guest.
Well, hey, proud to be. And now knowing you guys blow up, forget about me. I can be like, I was on episode number 6 here.
This will be 6.
5.
This will be 6.
This is 6.
This is this is 6.
Oh, including the dish, the hot dish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think technically it's number 5.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. Episode number 5.
I was here.
Go to YouTube and look it up.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me, guys.
Yeah, much appreciated, man. We'll have you on again. We'll do some more D&D stuff.
Yeah.
You'll be the first guy we call for D&D.
Well,
cool.
from
and other stuff too, video games.
Yeah. I mean, I truly believe that D&D is one of the best ways to tell a narrative.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100%.
Rock and roll, guys.
Yeah. Well, from the Narrative Nerds to you, thanks for tuning in.
I'm Carter.
I'm Shane.
I'm Nerdy Nick.
We out.
Have a good one.
Merry Christmas.